This is episode 183 of GI Joburg. My name is Steve.
And I'm Paul.
And we're kicking it like it's 2011 again, buddy. It's just you and me in the studio today.
Mm-hmm.
Wild. Takes me
So
back to that fateful day in October where you were like, we should record a podcast right now. Flip the script back to episode 1 in your pod players, if it even scrolls back that far, and you can hear exactly how amateurish we were back then. Of course, nothing's changed. We're just a little bit older, more jaded and cynical, and that's possibly the tone that we're going to have to take for this inauspicious episode of GI Joburg. Because 2020, my friends, has been a hell of a year. I don't think we've fully acknowledged it, to be honest. We've oftentimes on this podcast been in denial of it. But we'll get into all and sundry in terms of where we are and where we're going. But Paul, catch me up, brother. It's been too long. Catch the listeners up.
Okay, so what's been happening? Okay, well, for starters, let me start on one little positive. This year so far, things so far have been good for my GI Joe collection. I won't lie.
Always
okay.
Good.
I have managed to finish years 85 and 86 and 87, and I think I need 88, and I think I still need DJ from 89. So I'm doing okay. I'm sorry if you just heard the police. That's not for me. But we have all been I have been crazy busy. And I started something called Some Assembly Required with Jim Godfrey and Bart Simon. And this was just to sort of get into the customizing side of GI Joes and getting into, and not just GI Joes, but toys in general, but mostly GI Joe. And sort of explore that, because that was something that, in our normal podcast, we couldn't really discuss that, unless we had a guest. And, there's so many layers to those conversations that I figured we should do it. And the whole brainchild behind that was actually Bart got hold of me, and Jim actually got hold of me on separate occasions, asking if I wanted to be a guest on another podcast with them, to talk about modifying GI Joes. And I was like, cool. And then that never really happened. That never came through because, everybody's lives are crazy this year. And then I was like, hey guys, well, why don't we just do our own? And so we've been doing Sub-Assembly Required, and it's got its niche. So that's
bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Yeah, you watch out, Paul. They're onto you, man. You've been smuggling in illicit items. Some armed 3 3/4 inch forces planning the invasion. Yeah, and for my part, I hate bleating about the way the year's gone. Things haven't been that bad that I'm, devastated by 2020. But it's something that I perhaps am in danger of being too quiet on the other hand. You may or may not know, long-time listeners, that my profession was in live performance, and since March, that hasn't happened, and probably will continue to not happen. COVID was the catalyst that's sort of stopped my tour in its tracks, but life is now perpetuating my career being on hold. What I mean by that is I traveled immediately once the global lockdown had sort of started coming into effect. Traveled immediately to my wife in a smallish town in Australia, and have started a new life together here. Her work is here, so I've kind of bowed to that for now, and put my career in its entirety on hold. Gotten work in a completely different sphere, which is far more full-time than my layabout actor gig ever was. It has really impacted on my free time and the amount of time that I'm able to devote to things like podcasts and the YouTube channel. My involvement on Talking Joe was a victim of this. It was just not making a whole lot of sense to come to the party half-cocked and without really the time to put as much joy and effort and I suppose just the ability to do the editing chores for Chief. Similarly, GI Joburg has died a death. Certainly the play motion stuff. The last time I dipped my toes was Bad Luck Lady.
Yeah.
And that was a good chunk of time ago. I think that was early this year. I think February, the
Yes,
final
yeah.
chapter went live. And that actually coincided with the last time I was in Cape Town. And a lot of close friends and fans of the show have pointed to the fact that they have no problem with more personal stories dealing with the handful of toys. It's grown beyond a handful, fortunately, but the toys that I have to hand here in Australia, I could always tell tales with them and do play motion stuff. But the truth of the matter is, I was very hell-bent on bigger stories, more high stakes, more vehicles and equipment, larger plot lines, more drama. I didn't want to narrow the focus again, because when you boil down the numbers, it takes just as long to dream up a script, voice cast it, do the principal photography, and then do the weeks of editing that goes into a film afterwards, and the sound mixing. It takes just as long if you're doing a close-knit story like Bad Luck Lady, or a vast story like Atlantis Factor or Blazing Sand. These things equate to the same amount of time. And I'd much rather be doing the epic stories that showcase what we do best, which is taking these collectibles and holy grail items and just devil may care, playing with them on the ocean.
Putting them in a bad situation.
Or the ideal situation, Paul.
There's that
always
too.
dreamed about putting the flag to sea, and the channel pushed me to do that. I don't think I ever would have done it had we not had the platform to show it to the world. It always just would have been a pipe dream of mine that, yes, the flag, it's a boat, but it doesn't float. What can I do about that? So Blazing Sand came to the rescue, and in a similar vein, I wanted to do something quite special with the Defiant. At the beginning of this year, tears in my eyes, I make this admission. At the beginning of this year, Rob, Paul, and I were in talks about creating a feature-length play motion adventure, something that would tie in all our previous efforts and wrap it up in a nice big GI Joe versus Cobra in space with the fate of the world hanging in the balance kind of adventure. We wanted to do battles on a beached flag. We wanted to incorporate Cobra Law in a way that was sinister and believable and meshed well with the tone of the stories that we'd been telling. A lot of people told us that we had some of the realism of the comic books mixed in with some of the fun of the animated series, which I think is such an important balance to strike. And presenting it all very lovingly using the original toys. These were the kind of the prerequisites of the GI Joburg play motions. These were our non-negotiables. And we thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a full-length film, an hour and a half of just raw GI Joburg madness, scripted, voice acted, shot, edited, sound mixed by us. And to that end, I wanted to detain my man Paul and my man Rob in Cape Town for a month and some change to assist me on this adventure. And we even went as far as to putting together a budget, which we would then float onto a kind of a GoFundMe to hopefully pull Paul and Rob away from their work commitments and allow them to subsist for a month when the only work they were doing was shooting each other, playing with toys.
Exactly.
What a dream. Needless to say, those dreams were crushed, unfortunately. Or
Yeah.
fortunately, I don't know. It perhaps might have been too much to chew, or we might have actually pulled it off. Who knows? But it was not meant to be. This year was not going to allow it.
There are some positives. There's some serious positives to take from what Stephen has just said now. And I'm going to sound like somebody when I say it, but I'm going to get to that just now. But the other thing is that we have, like a lot of what Stephen said, like, trying to make it epic and trying to make it cool is a real goal and was a real risk. Like for myself, it's a real risk for me to have taken that month, to do this. And so we really had to make sure everything was tight and whatever from our side. And so one of the positives, see, I got to that part now. One of the positives is that what's happened on my side is, I've been getting fairly consistent gigs as a result of COVID, because the industry that I work in ramped up dramatically. And so I'm not saying this like because I'm trying to make people feel bad. So, but it ramped up dramatically to the point where all of a sudden myself and my contemporaries were getting emails like, are you available for these projects? Are you available for this? I'd get emails like, oh, do you know a really good, VFX guy, post-production VFX guys? Because all of a sudden advertising companies and film companies and stuff are looking for people. And so I sort of managed to secure kind of a solid, like a consistent gig for the last year. And it's been good. It's been really good. But what that's also allowed me to do is not just like, just relax and not worry about bills anymore, but it's also allowed me to also think about, okay, well, what's missing in my collection to contribute to these stories? And I've really been hitting a lot of my vintage collecting quite hard where I can, because I've had the means to, not only because I've been making a little bit of extra money and being able to do things, but also with the support of the guys from the Patreon, who have allowed me to get cast members for what, we are planning for. So no, but it sounds silly.
Are we planning? I don't know. Look, you don't have to feel guilty about business taking an upswing during COVID.
Yeah, I just kind of do.
That is wonderful, and you're not the only one. I mean, there have been a number of people I've chatted to in various walks of life who said that the lockdown and people being more active on the global village, the information superhighway, things reverting to a more contactless, remote situation, working from home et al. These are great strides. I think society has, it's hardened, but it has also made huge strides forward in terms of cementing a more digital economy.
Definitely.
And that is the key to our survival. So I would urge you to never feel any kind of guilt that things are going well for Paul. This is wonderful news, Paul, and I'm happy for you, my man.
Thanks, man. And you just said like how the whole global village, inverted commas, has changed. Well, another great positive is the company I work for. I was having to go and check in like every second or third day in their offices, and actually be sort of, when I say strapped down, I know it sounds negative, but I mean strapped down into a studio and working with the studio team, because they weren't familiar with this whole concept of working remotely. And now that COVID has happened and forced us to work remotely, they've actually sold their offices. So now we are going to be remote working full time, which means that if I need to go and take a jaunt down to Cape Town to go and play with toys with my friends for a month, for example, that can happen, because the studio that I work with and all the studios now are like, yeah, cool, yeah, work remotely, whatever, and I can like answer, do my morning stand-up meetings on the iPad or whatever, connected to like LTE broadband, and then they can be like, your beach background looks so realistic, and I'm like, yeah, right.
Of course.
Yeah.
But, well, in the positives column, Kim and I bought a house in Cape Town. It's now tenanted, but if I may sob one more tear over the loss of our movie making project, we would have had a very cool new base of operations with which to stage our various comings and goings and pool our collections if you brought them.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
But once
Good thing,
again,
yeah.
dashed to the wind. Fortunately, it's tenanted, so it's kind of ticking itself over. Another win column. It would not be a kind of a 2020 sign-off GI Joburg episode if I didn't make some thank yous of my own. I have probably more than I care to admit mentioned that I came to Australia with only a handful of action figures that I'd kind of not anticipated being my only action figures for the rest of the year. But a number of folks rushed in to assist. And I'd be very remiss if I didn't name drop them here just one more time, because it's to them I give thanks for keeping the flame of my hobby burning. I think G.I. Joe and G.I. Joburg would have died far swifter had it not been for the fact that I have fantastic toys to hand now. It's actually become quite a little cast of characters, very varied. Some that I already own, but a lot that I never did. So either way, it's going to see a welcome home. I know, Paul, you've got dibs on a few other duplicates. Rob's definitely going to be a recipient of. But the thank yous in sort of chronological order would start off with Mr. Robert Kalupitan, who I met up with in Manila before the lockdown began. And he hooked me up with some vintage G.I. Joe stuff, but also some very varied stuff, comic books and Gundam toys and Transformers, all of which will be divvied up amongst the G.I. Joburg guys in due course. I kind of fought the notion of sending a box to South Africa because I'd always maintained the hope that I'd be able to visit sooner rather than later. But it seems like that's getting pushed further and further out as South Africa gets its second wave.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Fake news? No. The numbers don't lie. But look, the compartmentalization of this virus is not a way to win the battle. The only way is if we cross the finish line as a united planet.
Definitely.
So while I am very grateful that where I live, there's a very firm handle on the virus, and my freedom of movement and life is not impinged at all. It is in the sense that I can't leave the country. So, as I say, or to paraphrase the Sarge, we all go home or nobody goes home. We all need to beat this or nobody beats it. But yeah, Robert Kalupitan hooked me up. Hot on the heels of that, but actually predating that, was Mr. Jim Godfrey, who had some goodies sent out to me for my birthday of last year. But because I had them mailed to my Australian address, I only got them in March when I got here. But some lovely, lovely stuff, very thoughtful stuff from a good friend. Thank you, Jim. Bart sent me some fun stuff as well. An MRE, which I then did a YouTube video on, plus some dessert in the very delicious ice cream soldier. Andrew Creech, ever the stalwart. He not only muled some stuff that I had sent to him in the States from eBay, but he made some very thoughtful and generous inclusions to the box as well. 2 boxes, in fact. What a guy. Cody Scalf, hearing my plaintive call for more toys, he threw a very generous box at me. I would be happy with 3 figures. I think this box had over a dozen, and very unique ones at that. Some old, some newer, toys that I'd somehow never encountered before, redecos of toys, some classics, some essentials. I mean, General Hawk, thank you very much. Who would be commanding my troops if I didn't have the 1986 Hawk here with me? Just to name a few. After Cody, Alan Grant, a new friend of mine who I met in Australia, had a brief video chat, and he showed me some of his collection and told me that he's got some duplicates. Do you want them, Steve? I was like, if you're sure, which he was. And it's thanks to him that I now have a buzzball, which I absolutely adore. Who knew? Who knew? But being a fan of the GI Joe Nintendo game, how could you not, right? Then most recently, Dustin Verberg from Dragon Fortress. We had him as a guest on the show, and we got talking about Eco Warriors Flint, and he said, I've got an extra. Do you want it? I was like, do you need an answer to that? Of course, buddy. But I mean, I never want to. I hate the idea that saying things like this puts any kind of pressure on people. I certainly hope that's never the case. But beyond the Eco Warriors Flint, he just filled that box out with so much goodness. Also very thoughtful. Some incomplete, some complete, but all of them with weapons and spare O-rings. And not to mention that, but some third-party Joes as well, some Black Major stuff, and 2 tasty redecos of the Iron Grenadier, which are just fantastic. I actually have some plans to debut them in a play motion, but let me not dangle that carrot too much. And of course, Paulie, buddy, you sent me a sweet birthday gift, man, and it arrived perfect timing, just one day late, which is my favorite timing for a birthday gift, I must say, because it's like, hey, it's my birthday today as well. Which in terms of time zones, if it's the day after your birthday and you're on the east coast of Australia, it's still your birthday on the west coast of the United States.
Right, exactly. It's always like birthday o'clock somewhere, right? Well, not always, but you get what I'm saying.
And as of this recording, I don't like hyping things that I don't actually have to hand, but good friend of the show, Range Viper Rob, who we recorded the Nintendo playthrough and commentaries on the YouTube channel, has decided that he's not doing anything constructive with his second deluxe 6-inch Snake Eyes.
Ooh.
So he's tossed it my way, and I'm sure Paul is extremely jealous at this point and saying, but you're not the 6-inch guy.
Yeah, but I'm glad that if you were going to get one, it's that one.
Yes, precisely my line of thinking. If that figure does not sway me, nothing will. And it is certainly the one to own. Not that I'm the world's biggest Snake Eyes fan, but I think the mix of colors appeal to me. I think a little bit of tasty brown, dark brown, on Snake Eyes' deco works. I've never been too swept up in modern interpretations of an all-black figure. It works in the vintage line because the colors were bolder in the vintage line by necessity. They weren't trying to emulate realistic real life. They were trying to make colorful, exciting, eye-catching toys. But the closer we get to the Call of Duty generation of toy manufacturing, the more you demand these kind of muted tones and realistic color mixtures, mixed mediums. Like he's actually wearing various different textures and fabrics. So I'm excited to see what it's like in hand. Once again, I kind of don't necessarily want to put it on record, but here I go anyway. Expect to see some fanfare for it, perhaps on the YouTubes. Yeah.
I think it definitely needs fanfare.
Yes, no, it definitely does. Whether or not Stephen can get off his morbidly depressed arse and do it, that's a joke. Only not really.
Yeah, like, yes, but also...
perhaps I need to just tease that out a little bit. It has been tough to get excited about my hobby when I've lost all the kind of the free time that I once had to enjoy it. Case in point, it has become extremely difficult for us to podcast. I have one day off in a week, and that day is a Sunday for me, which makes it quite late on a Saturday night for Paul, and crazy time for Cujo on the West Coast. So, and that's it. If we miss that window, we miss it for a week.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of hold thumbs that it works out the week after. So it has become a huge upheaval to try and keep this thing going. So that's another reason why I've kind of dropped into radio silence.
Yeah, that's the thing as well, and that I wanted to address is, 2020 has taken its toll in the weird, like in the logistics of what we do here at GI Joburg, because as you heard what Stephen said, and that does impact us, and it also is the how do I put it? I don't know if you feel this way, Steve, but I also kind of feel like on one hand I'm like, yes, everything's going well, and got some cool stuff happening and got some new toys and all that, but on the other side of that, I kind of feel like I kind of feel scared celebrating that when everybody has got more important stuff to worry about, and I'm not sure whether celebrating these cool things is making people's lives better because they're seeing this and going, oh, okay, cool, that makes me feel good. Oh, I'm seeing some of these toys and it's great. Or it's kind of, or if it's eliciting a response like, oh, they got new toys again, and it's just 2020 that's making me really think like that. And I've also had a little bit of trouble with that for myself, but that's me. So.
I think in all things, keep doing what you're doing, because more now than ever, a semblance of normalcy or the life we used to have is of vital importance. If there's a piece of your old life that you can cling to and bring forward into this, and I hate this term, new normal, do it. Yeah, no, it's disgusting. I don't want the new normal. We all want the old normal, but we're all slowly waking up to the fact that yes, things will be forever changed. And while I do have the mic, I just wanted to kind of vent a sentiment that one of my favorite podcasts keep trotting out, and it's the one time when these two very thoughtful individuals who intellectually I buy and I enjoy their content because they are very sensitive around these issues. They do a pop culture podcast and talk about how cinemas are closing, and this is all very devastating for an industry, but that cinema will survive. And I think to myself, well, yes, but it was a medium that supported millions of jobs. Cinema will survive, sure, but it will be a fraction of it that survives. The same with live theater. People will have moved on. People have found other avenues and walks of life. Cinemas that are closing, some will never come back. The big dogs will survive, as they always do, because they're sufficiently insulated and diversified. But don't lose sight of the fact that, like, for a huge number of people, this is the end. This will not return in any way. So it feels kind of callous saying things like the live experience of going out to a theater and going out to a cinema will be back. We as a society can't live without it. But by the time that happens in any significant way, a lot will have been lost. And just to have a sensitivity around that, I guess, this is what I'm preaching at this point. But I can't stand to hear myself preach, so that's enough preach from me. Time for a bit of positive. This year has brought about a great number of things. Oh, carry on, Paul. I think let's switch it up. You have the mic for a sec, buddy.
Cool. Yeah, I also just want to throw in a few thank yous as well. And you're going to hear some of the same names. but I think it's worth mentioning them again because they've also been super helpful to me, and you know, they are GI Joburg's friends and also like our support squad, you know. And in no particular order, I do want to start off with Gary Viola, or Gary V. You know, my year started off with a fantastic package from him and from Andrew Creech, and I have mentioned what came through in those packages in earlier podcasts, so you can actually rewind and go and check them out, because why not? Our podcast is great to listen to. But there is one particular item that Gary has sent me, and I have got a great way of showcasing it, and I'm hoping that that'll be a cool little play motion that is going to happen, especially because my leave is coming up soon, so I can do it the way I want to, and which segues very nicely into Bart Simon. Dude, you have been super, super cool and supportive this year. Thank you so much. You know, he's been my sort of drop shipping or forwarding shipping address. I have you know, found a few items on BBTS and whatever's in BBTS couldn't ship here to South Africa, so I shipped them off to Bart, and he stuck them in a box for me. He also helped me get a GI Joe a headquarters command center, and yeah, and it's so
Awesome.
cool, and I can't believe I haven't got myself one before. And that's also one of the things, like, because Steve, because you're all the way there, I always felt that your HQ was kind of close by for me, you know. But now you moving away has made me realize, oh crap, I want to do all this stuff in the HQ with the play motion, but I can't. So, and finally getting my hands on one has allowed me to sort of combine that for what I want to do going forward. Another great guy, Cody. Thank you so much. Cody saw me post about these He-Man figures, and he got hold of me super quick, and he was like, do you want them? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, cool, they're in the mail on the way. And then he's like, and then he sends me this message. He's like, do you think I'm allowed to send cigarettes through the post? And I'm like, unfortunately, with the USPS, that's a big no-no, because he's like, there's all these cool cigarette brands around where he lives that he wants me to try out, which is really cool. And so, yeah, he was there. Dustin Cordish has also, he sent me a message. He's like, oh, I'm sending you some stuff. I'm like, cool. And then, of course, Mr. Jim Godfrey. You know, Jim is just like, you know, he's immediately like, he heard me say something about ninjas, and he's like, oh, he packed me a little box of just all the Ninja Force weapons, and then he's like, there's a surprise in there. I'm still waiting for that to clear through our postal system to get to me. But thank you, dudes. And to all of you guys that have been like very supportive of the art streams that I've been doing, because I know that that's only, you know, you're only getting one portion of GI Joburg there, and the fact that you guys have been coming on and sitting with me and watching me draw and hearing me waffle on about a whole bunch of stuff, seeing all the same names, you know, Andrew again, Gary V, Dan Szymanski, Troy, all of you awesome people, just to name a few. Just seeing you guys there, that's been amazing. Also with the Summer Assembly Required, all of the support that we've been getting from there. Yes, it's a smaller crowd, but it's a crowd that seems very interested in what's happening there. And so digging that support. And of course, the patrons, you guys, thank you so much, because you don't actually realize how much what you're doing is helping me and helping the channel. It's giving me the option to be able to get stuff that I could normally not get, you know, and that goes into the channel. So it's things like, for example, subscriptions to StreamYard, so that we can do live streams without any, you know, weird hitches and glitches and weirdness and stupid stuff. Allows us to, and something that I want to experiment with in the new year is live podcasts, you know, but I don't want to reveal too much of that. That we'll clue you in on that, and that's in January. It's allowed me to also buy some small, like, little digital assets here and there to do things for the podcast going forward. You will see them. Classified figures to review and to check out and to actually have an opinion on, so that we are staying relevant. You, the Patreons, you guys have been really, really awesome with that. And I hope that you feel that, you know, you've been getting, you know, some good returns on that in the form of having the videos and all of that cool stuff. So guys, thank you so much for that. That's been a great thing. It's like how we've all pulled together as a community. And lastly, for the thank yous, everybody who joined in on Backyard Battle. I love it. It's one of my favorite videos that we've ever done. And you guys are total legends for like jumping out and taking your toys out. And we're going to do it again. So, yeah. Cool. Anyway, Mike, back to Stephen.
Yeah, I think we're going to start wrapping up on this episode. It is a shorter one than our usual, but I guess it does have a kind of a more somber tone. But here's the kicker. I am adding a very important collectible to my stash in April of 2021. My son, touch wood, if all things go well, will be born maybe around the 5th of April. And that's pretty huge.
Pretty
Finally have an heir to the collection. But knowing my luck, he'll probably be into video games or sports. Boo! And of necessity, life takes a sharp left turn. My life at the moment is unrecognizable and will continue to become more and more strange and beautiful. Thanks to the guys who I have broken the news to and have kind of shot back with their experiences of being a father and a G.I. Joe fan, and the adventure of what it's like to be a big kid and to finally have the most awesome of playmates. I certainly hope this young man is going to be up for the adventure, because I certainly am. I'm itching. It's always been a great sadness of mine that while I was able to maintain a steady regime of playing with toys with my friends way past the age we should have set them down, and perhaps GI Joburg is founded on the fact that we were in our 20s before we finally stopped playing together on the weekends. It became a very a very grown-up pastime, in fact. Just like some people do role-play board games, we would do free-form role-play with G.I. Joes and Cobras. And while we thought this might be slightly weird at the time, I'm sure the people listening to this podcast are almost a little bit envious. I certainly am envious of 25-year-old Steve, who did not know that he was playing some of his last games with Alistair and Rob. Those days, I doubt could ever come back. The Play Motion was founded on me finding a way to play with my friends again, basically. If we needed a camera in play to kind of justify us going out somewhere, getting our Joes out, and having a battle, so be it. I was prepared to be that cameraman. But now I've got a little guy on the way who will hopefully just get that furnace stoked again. Oh, hello. That's not him. He wasn't messaging me from Kim's womb. So I'm excited about the future. I know it might be a good long while before things are back in the full swing, but I'm hopeful more than ever that G.I. Joe, for me, it's just getting started.
Yeah, man. I mean, think about it. You'll get to be, and I'm like, this is something I think is really amazing. You'll get to be a dad who can play with the toys with his kid. You know.
I hope my back holds out.
Oh, you're strong.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Yeah, man.
Dude. Awesome,
now it's the time when the creaks start happening. You can't sort of contort yourself like you used to and get down to the carpet as easily as you once did. I don't know. You better teach me some of that Kung Fu Master shit, bro. I want to be spry at age 50.
Yeah, I'm going to teach you some frog sit and Buddha sit and all those good things just to keep you limber so that you can, bend down.
Not without having that, and this is news to you as well, Paul. I suppose just a little kind of a coda or epilogue. While I am kind of on record as being a bit begrudging about emigration, because it did happen all very suddenly and almost without me fully thinking through what it means to up and leave my home and try and embrace a new society, a new world, a new circumstance. But COVID has been a disguised blessing in that my permanent residence status has come through in record time.
Wow.
So Kim and I were applying for a spousal visa, which can take anywhere between 18 months and 2 years to be granted. They granted it in 7 months, but not only that, but they granted my permanent residence status as well, which
Wow.
means I am one step short of being an Australian citizen. You know, the only thing that I am not in possession of is the ability to vote and the passport. But for all intents and purposes, I have every other right of this country, which is something that took Kim 9 years of living here to achieve. And thanks to, I suppose, all the foreign caseworkers having nothing to do during COVID, I achieved in 7 months. So,
It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of things that I can be very, very grateful about. New toys, permanent resident status, and my boy.
Yeah, my boy. And then, doesn't that also mean that, like, it's going to, the possibility of you sort of coming back to SA to, come and, or just coming back to SA and then being able to get back to Australia, doesn't that open that up for you? Like, it makes it easier? Because I know that one of the concerns that you sort of mentioned was, if you leave Australia, you were worried that maybe you had struggled to get back in because of the visa situation.
Yes, and unfortunately, I have inherited my wife's neurosis when it comes to immigration and travel, specifically under COVID. But I do know of a few friends who've made that trip and made it successfully, in spite of the uncertainties.
Right.
We are still working with a situation where Australia is repatriating a limited number of people per week because of the costs involved with hotel quarantine, all that jazz. So it's kind of in the number of 4,000 to 6,000 people per week. So you can be on a waiting list with a flight booked and last minute just be told, sorry, we're at capacity. fly to the country next week. And so the risks of travel, at least financially, not to mention just the inconvenience of it, but like just money lost in terms of flight cancellations and rebookings, are a huge detractor. So doing it on the back of a production that is paying for it, or a company that is paying for it, and doing it on your own, these are two different things. So I'm still very reluctant to make these moves or investigate it. But with a vaccine in its, beyond its test phase now, it's actually in its rollout phase. Maybe by July next year, I will be able to take my son to meet his grandparents. Huge. Yeah. Anyways, this has probably been the most un-G.I. Joe-centric episode of G.I. Joburg. For that, I apologize if you have managed to suffer through it this long. I'd just like to say, have a very merry end of the year. Whatever shape that your end of the year takes, I hope that it is peaceful, tranquil, reflective, positive, hopeful. I hope you and yours are able to enjoy some semblance of closeness, whether it be in actual physical proximity or over the miracle and the blessing and the curse that is the internet. But I just hope that we all find time for one another and patience and love and peace. And through that, I hope we all find some joy and perhaps positivity for the year to come. Things can't get any worse, can they?
Well, no, touch wood. No, don't. Let's not challenge anything. I mean, like you know, to chip in there, and it's just one little teeny little, and I have to throw in some GI Jonas quickly.
Oh, please
I
save us,
possess a
Paul.
road toad, courtesy of Bart Simon, who decided to sneak it in my box of goodies.
I'm waiting for that ninja pile driver to show up.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no.
I would be surprised. No, it's yeah, I got a road toad, and I must say I'm starting to like it a little bit more than the battle barge, because I can actually see a purpose behind it.
Oh, it's an incredibly thoughtful inclusion. Like,
yeah,
that is some world building right there. I wish they'd kind of spun out of that and included something slightly more useful, like a 2-ton truck,
yeah, to
or
hold it
just,
around. Yeah.
well, no, like any kind of, we got a bridge layer and we got a road toad. These are logistical
Yeah,
vehicles or equipment. They are not frontline battle equipment, which is what GI Joe specifically, is marketing. They want to give you the most exciting stuff, the frontline stuff.
yeah.
But the road toad is just so random. Wouldn't you
It is
agree?
so.
Like
It is super.
firstly it needs something to tow, and then it needs something to tow it.
Yeah,
It's like the piece of the chain that, yeah, is somewhat essential, but without the other two is completely just taking up space on your shelf.
totally. But as I said to Bart, I was kind of surprised that it wasn't a pulverizer. um, but it's a road toad, and even when I took it out of the box, I was like, okay, cool. And then like, where's the rest of this thing? And then like, okay, there was actually a rest of it. There was like another part, and I put the two parts together, and I'm like, so that's the road toad. I looked on 3D Joe's. I'm like, and on yojo.com, I'm like, yep, that's the road toad.
Do you
It's
have the
just that.
missiles?
I don't have the missiles. Yeah.
I've got one actually,
Wow.
randomly. In fact, I think
And
that missile was mistakenly included with, was it Rob's buzzball, perhaps? It's kind of the fin was jammed into the slot on the buzzball, and I was like, that's not from the buzzball.
from the road toad.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so random. You got a missile.
I got myself. Awesome. But yeah, guys, the other thing is like, we know that things have been a bit crazy, and we've also had to all of us have had to figure out how we're going to go forward with GI Joburg and what kind of shape it's going to take. And I don't want to disclose any of that right now. I mean, Stephen has mentioned a lot of cool things already, and I'm very happy to hear those things as well. Like super happy actually. But there are one or two things that are going to change with GI Joburg next year, and it's not like they're not bad things or majorly dramatic things. I want to try and get us to do a few more experimental things with the channel, and we don't know how long things are going to last with COVID and stuff, and I want to try and find ways to make it fun and to get our listeners more involved in what we're doing as well, and and things like backyard battles. I mean, that was one of the first steps towards trying to do that. And so I will definitely, and perhaps Steve will be with me. That would be cool. In January, we will do a state of GI Joburg, and just to let you know what we kind of got planned. And bear in mind, we might not get to all of it, or we might, while we're trying to do something, figure out something else that's much more fun. But yeah, that's the thing. GI Joburg, there is going to be a little bit of an evolution, a little bit of a change here and there. And yeah, so I'm kind of excited about that as well. And as you guys heard before, being able to work remotely and that kind of stuff does make me a little bit more flexible now when it comes to the podcast and the timing. And yeah, and you'll see what we've sort of done in January, because yeah, there's some stuff happening, and I'm sorry to be so cryptic, but I would like to have something for you guys to unwrap in the new year after all of your cool Christmas goodies.
What's going to be under your tree, Paulie?
Ooh, I I've actually decided to take a very weird trip with Christmas this year. I have Celia in my life, and we sort of decided that we're going to try and get one or two cool things for our folks, and then we will do sort of a later thing where we will get each other something like awesome in January or February, because right now, because of how 2020 has affected stuff, there isn't a great selection of things, and we don't want to just buy each other something for the sake of buying things, because we still want to be smart financially. So rather get a few things for our folks, and then just have these cool moments of like going Christmas shopping and doing all that fun stuff together. But honestly, I've just had the such a gift this year with everybody that sent me cool stuff, and allowed me to get a lot of cool stuff, that I actually just feel it would be a bit foolish to want anything under my Christmas tree other than just being able to really enjoy it with my family and just really get some time to play with my new toys. That's kind of a big thing for me for Christmas this year. And I actually almost forgot to mention, and I wanted to mention there's a few podcasts back around my birthday. Stephen over here, sneakishly, as he does, and it's amazing how you do this, dude. But I also got a random package, and it was from Stephen. It was sent from Cape Town, and he got his mom to be his sort of wingman on this. And it was great because I got one of those Mega Man figures, the Rockman, but Mega Man from the sort of video game 2-pack that comes with Iron Man. And that was a toy I never ever thought I'd have. And it's so great to have that, Rockman at that like GI Joe scale. And
you did ask for it at the time, Paul.
I did ask for it. I just didn't think you had found it or whatever, because you didn't like respond or anything to say, oh, that you managed to get it or anything. I just thought, okay, cool, maybe he went back and he didn't get it, or because I know things were like really rushed for you at that time as well. So I was like, cool. And then also, I also got Knockdown. So somehow I'm magnetically attracted.
Well, that's courtesy of Bart,
It is. But you also did the cleaning job on it and decided I was the one to inherit him. So it's pretty cool. And he's actually a cool toy. So that's great.
True.
So I'm very thankful right now just for what I have. And I think Christmas for me is really going to be about sitting down and just taking the time to enjoy my toys, enjoy all the cool stuff that's happened this year, and just sort of just be able to just catch my breath, because it has been intense. Even though it's been good, it's been extremely busy. I have not slept well for the last 4 months now. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to a little bit of sleep too. Sorry, I'm sorry if that was a bit of maybe a downer or like something, but that's me for this one.
And I think that's a wrap, guys.
Yeah.
Yo Joburg, everybody.
Yeah.
Until we meet again. Yeah. Take care of yourselves.
Yeah, be good to each other. Stay safe. Play with your toys. Show us that you're playing with toys. And we're gonna catch you all in January. And quickly, while I'm at the door, sorry, because I've got so much stuff like rushing through my brain. It's all just catching up to me. There are still a few videos that are coming out in December, so we're not gonna be completely gone. Just saying. Okay. Berg.
Later, everybody.
Later.